You really think they hired you because you're talented? Come on, look at you. That was the moment Eden realized this wasn't about code. It was about who was allowed to be seen and who was expected to disappear. But instead of walking away, she dug deeper into broken systems, hidden logs, and the one decision that could take down a woman with more power than truth. Before we dive in, let me know, what time are you listening to this and where are you? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. Chapter 1. The Back Kitchen After Hours. Grease shimmered beneath the fluorescent lights smeared across the cracked tiles like a film no mop could ever lift. Eden Calloway wiped down the stainless steel sink with quick practice strokes. Her wrists ached. The apron clung damp against her ribs. Someone in the front dropped a tray, sharp crash, laughter, someone cursing. She didn't turn. Instead, she crouched beside the spice rack, pulling her backpack into the narrow space between two shelves. The laptop emerged with a faint creak of plastic. Its hinges stuck slightly, but the screen flickered to life. Battery at 8%. Good enough. The screen glowed in the dim corner where she'd wedged herself. For days now, she'd been trying to make sense of a glitch. No one seemed to care about just a small flaw in how things were processed, buried deep enough that most people would overlook it. Eden tilted her head, read what she'd written, then made a few quick edits. Nothing dramatic, just cleaning up logic, rearranging the order, filling in the gaps others had missed. A pan clattered in the distance. She paused, fingers hovering above the keys, heart ticking faster. Then another tap, and a final keystroke. Everything reset. She stared at the result, barely blinking. No more blinking red. No more failed checks. Just a quiet, steady green light pulsing back at her. For a moment, she didn't move, didn't smile, didn't celebrate. She just watched, letting the silence stretch, letting herself feel the difference between trying and finally solving. You still playing with that thing? Darren, Dish Crew 21, and perpetually amused by everyone else's dreams, leaned against the freezer door. What you think fixing shopping carts gonna pay for your mom's meds? She didn't answer. Not because he was wrong, but because if she spoke, the words might split her open. The kitchen door burst inward, striking the wall with a hollow thud. Eden flinched, nudged the laptop screen halfway down. A man filled the doorway, mid-50s, charcoal coat. Nothing ostentatious, but out of place in this neighborhood. He had no business being here. Steam from the fryer curled upward, drifting between them. He remained silent, gaze locked on her screen, then on her face. His stare didn't wander, it held steady and unblinking. With a single nod, he turned and left as calmly as he had arrived, like someone who hadn't just caught a waitress debugging enterprise-grade back-end logic beside a stack of ketchup packets. Eden watched him retreat. The door swung partway closed but failed to latch, a ribbon of cold air slipping around her ankles. She folded the laptop shut with care, rubbed her palms against her apron, and rose to her feet. Something in her chest, tight for days, shifted, subtle but real, like a hinge loosening on a door not meant to open. He came back near closing, same coat, same eyes. This time he didn't speak or glance her way. He slid into the booth in the far corner, rested his elbows on the table, and simply watched the restaurant breathe its final hour of the night. Eden spotted him the instant she stepped out of the kitchen with a tub of silverware. The atmosphere shifted. Her stomach tightened, though her hands kept moving. He wasn't doing anything suspicious, just sitting there. No menu, no drink, no phone. Nothing about him screamed trouble, yet something about him made her want to slip behind the walk-in freezer and stay hidden until morning. She kept her distance, wiping down 2 tables at a time, pretending not to see his eyes following her, while the staff dragged mops across the floor and stacked chairs onto tabletops. Her sneakers squeaked on the tiles, the only sound left after the music cut out. He left without a word. By the time she clocked out, he had already vanished. Ron, her shift manager, met her near the register with a slip of paper in hand. Guy at table 4 said this was for you, said it was important. Eden accepted it with fingers still cold from rinsing dishes. Typed email address. No name. No logo. No title. Underneath, written in pen, I think you just fixed something my 40-person team hasn't touched in months. She blinked, read it again. Her first instinct, a joke. Or worse, a setup. But Ron's face carried no smirk, no hidden punchline. Just his usual tired shrug and a glance at the wall clock. She slipped the note into her coat pocket and stepped out into the freezing Pittsburgh night. At home, she sat at the kitchen counter laptop, open beneath the dim yellow glow of the stove hood. Half a mug of instant coffee cooled beside her. She didn't know why she typed the message, only that she did. "I'm not sure what you're referring to." "Send." Silence followed. She was about to close the lid when the reply arrived 10 minutes later, maybe less. A private link, an internal demo dashboard. Rough but familiar. Routing paths, identical session logic, the same even the weak spots she had patched in her script only hours ago. One line of text beneath: "We're not looking for resumes. We're looking for people who can solve what others overlook." She read it twice, then again. Her fingers hovered above the keys. She didn't answer. Not that night. By morning, the sky sagged gray as wet newspaper. Eden boarded the early train coat, zipped to her chin, scuffed backpack on one shoulder. Her boots left damp marks on the aisle as she slid into a window seat. Outside, the city looked half-asleep smokestacks, exhaling mist streetlights blinking faintly, brick corners blurred by fog. She folded and unfolded her ticket until it creased. She had no idea what waited ahead, only that staying behind felt worse than going. Across town, in a plain ground-floor office at Dresden HQ Corbin, Dresden reviewed overnight logs. No corner view, no nameplate. He preferred it that way. On his screen, system patch confirmed. Entry ID guest CPH. Timestamp aligned with his visit to the restaurant. The same endpoint the internal team had wrestled with for weeks had stabilized overnight. No alerts since. He didn't smile. Just closed the file. Upstairs, Marla Vexler faced the company's internal communications lead, camera rolling. Her voice steady, her smile polished. "We've traced a few root causes," she said. "These back-end issues take time. It's a complex stack and we're moving carefully." She didn't realize the fix was already live, deployed by a stranger off the books. At that same moment, Eden stepped off the train into the quiet of a half-empty platform. Her phone buzzed beneath the arrival sign. One new message. No name. Just a location. 14th floor, room 1406, Dresden HQ, temporary technical evaluation. 10:00 a.m. She stared at the screen, lips pressed, breath fogging in the cold. No directions, no instructions, just a time and a door. Eden tucked the phone into her coat and kept walking. Her shoes echoed on the concrete steps, blending with the low whistle of wind threading between buildings. The elevator doors slid open with a whisper. No chime, no signage, only the number 14 glowing faintly on the panel. Eden stepped into a hallway stripped bare. Beige walls, flat carpet, fluorescent lights, humming like they hadn't rested in years. Room 1406 waited at the far end, its door indistinguishable from the rest. No label, no logo, just a keycard reader and a dull brass handle. She knocked once, then turned it. The space beyond felt like an old IT lab, bare desks, trailing cables, a faint tang of burnt plastic. No receptionist, no company sign. Two engineers hunched at monitors along the far wall, threadbare hoodies half covering noise-canceling headphones. They didn't glance up. A man with a clipboard stepped out from a side doorway. Without a word, he handed her a printout. The task plane in Aerial Debug Legacy module. Time window 3 hours. No external tools, no internet. At the bottom, no questions, no guidance. She nodded, though no one had asked. A temporary login waited at a corner workstation, old monitor keyboard dulled by dust. A mouse with its scroll wheel nearly bare. Eden paused before sitting, eyes flicking across the room. Server racks glowed faintly behind glass. The steady hum grounded her. This wasn't training, it was pressure. For her. She pulled out the chair, adjusted her sleeves, and logged in. The interface booted slowly, sparse, messy, written with the arrogance of someone who assumed no one else would ever touch it. She sifted through layers of function calls and redirect paths. Manageable at first, tedious but familiar. Then she found it. Buried inside a supposedly deprecated module, one block. Rerouted payment logic through an obsolete gateway long out of compliance with the company's new system. No error, no flag. It had slipped through years of audits, shielded by masking and version spoofing. Her pulse quickened, not with panic but recognition. Mistakes like this didn't survive by chance. Either deliberate or dangerously careless. Her fingers moved faster now. She rewrote the block, cleaned the logic, patched in a missing validation. Checked twice, hovered, then tapped enter. The screen refreshed. No errors, no warnings. A quiet click escaped her throat. Not laughter, not relief, just release. She gathered her things, unclipped the badge, and stood. The engineers never stirred. At the doorway, someone was already there. The man from the restaurant. He didn't look surprised. His gaze swept the room briefly, then held on her. He spoke evenly, hands at his sides. "I'm Corbin." Her mouth went dry. She only managed a nod. "I want you on contract," he said. 90 days. Project-based. We'll handle the paperwork." She blinked. "Wait, why?" "You solved something stuck for 2 quarters. Alone. You didn't flag it. Didn't wait for clearance. You just fixed it. No smile, no pause." He turned and walked out as if the decision was already closed. Eden stood frozen. The silence roared louder now. One engineer yawned, scratching his neck. She slipped into the hall steps cushioned by carpet. Pressed the elevator button, chest rising slower than before. When the doors opened, her reflection caught her eye in the mirrored panel. Wrinkled sleeves, stray hair against her neck. The fryer oil still clung to her coat fibers. Her hands, dry from soap, nails uneven, didn't look like they belonged here. But they had brought her this far. The elevator slid to the lobby. Pale light spilled across the marble floor. No applause, no greeting. Only her footsteps echoing into the hall. The office carried a hush too heavy for its numbers. Eden stepped into the shared workspace just past 8. Overhead lights hummed cold and, even casting no shadows, only a flat brightness across identical rows of desks. Screens glowed in near-synchronized rhythm. Coffee cups clustered at corners like placeholders for people reluctant to be present. She was assigned a desk at the far end, tucked against a wall where the overhead vent hissed steadily. No nameplate, no team label, only a sticky note with her temporary login scrawled in block letters. Others sat in clusters, pairs, or small groups. Their conversations, when they happened, were thick with acronyms she didn't know. Pipelines, build artifacts, deprecated branches, spoken fast with an ease she hadn't earned. Eden booted the terminal, opened her assignment folder, and stayed quiet. By mid-morning, a message pinged across the internal thread. Subject: new intern. Did someone bypass the usual hiring flow? No profile on file. She read it twice, then minimized the window. Around her, no one reacted. Not directly. Yet she felt it, the glances that slid her way, the quick turnbacks, the shifting shoulders, making space around her. Marla passed once, clipboard in hand, stride precise. She didn't stop, didn't nod, just walked through the aisle as though Eden wasn't there. But that afternoon in the hallway near a conference room, her tone flipped. "We're always open to young minds," she said, smiling thinly at Corbin, who listened with the stillness of someone elsewhere. "Fresh perspectives challenge old systems," she added. He only gave a brief nod before moving on. Back at her desk, a new task had appeared in her Q legacy: maintenance on a warehouse module. Harmless on the surface. She opened it, scanned, then froze. The structure was chaos. Misaligned values. Null checks missing. A loop overwriting the same array again and again. Any system pulling from it would fail, quiet at first, then catastrophically. But what unsettled her wasn't the bug. It was the history. The issue had been flagged twice before. Both times marked resolved, but each rollback restored the faulty logic line for line, as if someone wanted it preserved. She drew a breath, rewrote the block, left comments, and posted a note to the Slack dev channel. Potential structural issue in WH-map sync. Fix proposed and committed for review. She waited. 5 minutes. 10. No thumbs up. No questions. No ping. Then silently the code reverted back to broken form. No notice. No changelog. Her edits erased like they'd never lived. She double-checked her commits. No mistake. Her patch had run for 6 minutes before an admin override wiped it. Her chest tightened. Fingers cold despite the vent's heat. She refreshed Slack. Still nothing. The silence hit sharp as a slap. Someone had seen her work and made sure it disappeared. Eden leaned back, scanning rows of glowing monitors, heads that never turned. This wasn't neglect. It was orchestration. Someone wasn't just ignoring her. They were luring her to touch what she wasn't meant to. or worse, setting her up to fail. She opened her account logs. No admin-level visibility. No way to prove it. The clock crept past 4. Fluorescence buzzed. People packed up jackets, sliding on goodbyes offered to everyone but her. She rose, slowly gathered her things without sound, and walked to the corridor's end. The restroom lights flickered alive as the door swung shut. Water rushed from the sensor faucet before she even lifted her hands. She leaned forward, letting the cold stream run across her fingers, then splashed some onto her face. Drops clung to her chin before sliding into the basin. Her left wrist stung. She glanced down. A red mark curved where the work-issued watch had rubbed raw. She turned her wrist slowly, watching water bead along the scrape before trickling away. Her reflection stared back, no expression, only presence. Somewhere beyond the walls, her code was breaking again. The blinds hung half-drawn, letting a streak of late-afternoon sun cut across the glossy conference table. At the front, the screen flickered with a system report, black text on white lines upon lines of back-end errors. Eden sat third from the end badge, clipped crooked from rushing up the stairs. No agenda, no prep, just a calendar invite, weekly back-end status, mandatory. Marla stood at the screen, arms folded, voice clipped. Over the past 48 hours, we've logged 17 critical errors tied to payment retry logic, 2 failures in inventory propagation, 1 full timeout cascade from legacy modules. She tapped the clicker. New slide. Most recent changes made by user account temp Calloway. A ripple moved through the room. Eden straightened. That segment was unstable, she said evenly. It hadn't passed validation before I touched it. I flagged the inconsistency and submitted for peer. Marla cut her off. No record of confirmation, no review request. Yet the commit went through. Her head tilted, expression neutral. Explain why. Eden's jaw tightened. Because I had no access to request review. The pause that followed was too short for courtesy, too long for comfort. Marla advanced again. Which is why we follow process. Access levels exist for a reason. She wasn't angry, just efficient, practiced like trimming loose thread. Corbin sat at the back, hands folded. He said nothing. No defense, just stillness. Heat climbed Eden's neck. Her palms curled beneath the table nails, pressing deep. The screen blurred. She knew this tone. Heard it before at a diner job when she asked for more hours and got, "That's not your lane, sweetheart." Or in high school when she asked about AP programming and the counselor smiled, "Not really meant for everyone." Now the words had a new face, but the same weight. The meeting ended without verdict, just polite dismissal. People filed out, murmuring over coffee cups and closing laptops. Eden stayed behind, closing her files with shaking hands. "Hey," Reese Halden stood in the doorway, temples graying, hoodie with a faded Python logo, the kind who knew infrastructure better than those who built it. He waited until the room was empty. "You didn't do that." She blinked. "You saw the rollback," a half nod. "Only you and I had access. And I know it wasn't me." Then someone rolled it back behind us. Someone with admin override. He slipped a USB from his pocket, set it gently on her laptop. Log files. Full history from sandbox mirrors. "You won't find this in Maine." She stared at it. He didn't wait for thanks. Just leaned close. "Be careful around Marla. She doesn't like unknowns in her chain of control." Then he left without looking back. Eden lingered, watching the hall remain still as if daring her to follow. She pocketed the USB and stepped out. By the time she reached her apartment lobby, the sun had dropped, leaving the glass tinted golden gray. She didn't press the elevator button right away, just stood letting the quiet hum against the floor tiles. Upstairs, the living room was hushed except for the faint rush of pipes. She dropped her bag, opened the laptop, and slid in the USB. The file loaded fast, plain viewer, nothing polished but enough. She scrolled the log timestamps, user IDs. Then one line froze her hand above the trackpad. Log change by admin, Rosh, rollback override, Marlavex. She stared at it. No alarms, no flashing red. Just a line, clean, ordinary, sharp as a blade. The apartment lay silent, broken only by the creak of pipes in the wall. Eden sat cross-legged on the floor, laptop balanced on a flipped laundry basket, blankets trailing off the futon. On screen, the log file glowed pale blue. Rollback override, Marlavex. There it was beyond doubt. Her eyes burned not from tears but from the weight of knowing. This wasn't a theory anymore. Someone had reversed her work on purpose, then left her to take the fall. And not just anyone, her superior, the one who smiled in meetings and spoke of transparency. She tugged her hoodie sleeves down over her hands. The apartment always felt colder before sunrise. In her mind replayed the meeting, Marla's calm display of errors, the unspoken accusation. Corbin sitting silent, legs crossed, expression unreadable. If she spoke now, it would be her word against someone with power. No degree, no title, no allies. Just a woman from a Pittsburgh kitchen who happened to fix something too neatly too fast. She exhaled slowly and opened a new draft in her dressed-in inbox. Subject concerning rollback behavior in repository branch. She attached the log file and typed recent regressions appear linked not to code, but to administrative overrides. See timestamps. Review recommended. No names. No accusations. Only data. She saved the draft, closed the lid. Her hands trembled as she rose. The sun hadn't yet cleared the horizon, but she couldn't stay in the apartment. Sneakers on bag slung over her shoulder, she caught the first bus toward Ellsworth. The coffee shop surfaced like a memory-crooked tile near the register, the faded Wi-Fi for students sign taped to the door. The bell above the entrance chimed as she stepped in. Bryce was behind the counter, curls tucked in his hoodie, one earbud dangling. Eden, damn. You alive? Barely, she murmured, sliding into a stool. He poured her a drip without asking, still pulling doubles. Something like that. You still coding front end mostly. Can't wrap my brain around the back end junk. Too many pipes. Too many ghosts. Her smile carried both fondness and ache. She remembered his napkin diagrams, app flows, database calls, back when it all seemed like magic. Now she knew where the smoke and mirrors hid. You working somewhere now? He asked. She hesitated, then nodded. Tech firm, downtown. Kinda fell into it. Good for you. You were always sharper than this place deserved. She sipped warmth settling in her chest. Later at her old corner booth, she reopened the laptop. Sunlight striped the table in gold. Her thumb hovered over the draft's send key. The cafe's hum surrounded her blender, whirring jazz, crackling low voices trading stories. It felt safe. Too safe. If she let things stand, she could always return here. Double shifts, polite smiles. Let someone braver clean the mess. Or she could stay inside the system. Try to climb it. Try to change it. She clicked away from the draft. Not today, but not never. Morning brightened into gold. She paused at the door, hand brushing the old sticker, Wi-Fi for students. Once it had meant access possibility. Maybe it still did. She stepped into the street coat, pulled close, passing pharmacy, diner, record store. The bus stop wasn't far. The draft remained unsent, but her stride felt straighter, her steps more anchored. The cost of silence wasn't only professional. It lived in the gut, in the fragile space where courage tried to grow. And though she hadn't spoken yet, she no longer pretended not to see. The new office space carried no nameplate, just a laminated sign taped to the wall, research and improvement zone. Someone had scrawled a smiley face under the text, then tried to erase it. The faint outline lingered. Eden entered with the caution of someone stepping into an abandoned building. No greeting, no waiting faces, only two desks, a whiteboard scarred with half-erased code, and a lone intern hunched at a keyboard, hoodie up, earbuds in. She didn't ask why she'd been moved. She already knew the answer would be hollow. Corbin appeared just before noon. He didn't sit or meet her eyes, only stood at the doorframe. I want to see what you do when no one's blocking you, he said, and left before she could respond. No good luck, no clarity, nothing more. By week's end, Eden and the intern Sky, as she later learned, had rebuilt a neglected module in the ordering platform's backend. The code had been branded legacy, tangled with loops that crawled like vines. It had failed so often most teams stopped touching it. Eden cut through the overgrowth, one commit at a time. Sky spoke little, but their pace was sharp, their method precise. They understood silence. Midweek, Eden caught herself humming while refactoring the sorting queue. The coil in her chest wound tight since Marla's meeting began to loosen. Even her sleep changed. No more logs scrolling at midnight, no more phone checks every hour. At lunch, no one mentioned the rollback. Reese had been reassigned. Marla passed once in the hallway, eyes fixed ahead. Not a glance. The quiet unsettled her more than confrontation. Still, she kept working. She remembered Corbin's words. Maybe this was a test. Maybe she had earned the right to keep moving. 2 weeks in their rebuild cleared QA faster than expected. Eden documented every step, annotated each section. That evening, she sent the report to Corbin and shut her monitor without double-checking. The next morning, she allowed herself a proper coffee, walked into the office slower. Sunlight caught the edge of her badge. For once, she didn't feel like an imposter, not entirely. Her inbox stayed calm. No red flags. Slack threads, quiet. Then came the message. It appeared in the corner of her screen sender, masked by a string of lowercase characters. You think it's over? Look closer. Her hand froze on the coffee cup, the taste suddenly bitter. She glanced around the room, empty, but for Sky, who had stepped out. The hallway beyond the glass door was deserted. She clicked the message. It vanished. She opened system monitor. Logs appeared normal. Too normal. As she prepared to close it, one batch process caught her eye. Its name looked standard, but the parameters were subtly off. She traced it. The module reached into an archive framework deprecated 2 quarters earlier. It shouldn't have been active. Yet no alert fired, no errors. Silent execution. Scrolling deeper, she found the patch ID tagged with her name. Her throat tightened. This wasn't a bug. It was planted. Someone had routed an old function through her commit ID. It would look like she had revived a dead process. It would look like her rebuild had reintroduced a fault. On her monitor, the line of execution blinked once, then settled. She stepped back, coffee still warm in her hand, staring at the trail of code. 1 underscore in the file name was the only clue. Just enough to hide. Just enough to blame. The door clicked behind her. Someone entered. She didn't turn. Her eyes stayed fixed on the terminal, on that silent command, running where no one was supposed to look. The service elevator groaned as it sank past the basement lights flickering overhead. Eden clutched her laptop, watching the red numbers cycle, GB1, B2. Technical floor. The doors slid open with a metallic sigh. No reception down here. Exposed piping. Vents humming faintly. The distant thrum of old machinery still tethered to power. She hadn't known this level existed until Sky had mentioned it once, almost casually, that it had once housed Dresden's redundancy servers long before the glass walls and biometric gates. She moved quickly, boot soles rasping against stained concrete. The walls bore watermarks, sticky notes still clinging to forgotten monitors. No cameras, no people. Only rows of dormant hardware in brittle chairs. At the back, she found it Archive Node 03. Dust coated the casing. One fan still turned slow and tired. She plugged in. The interface was primitive, bare command lines, raw timestamps, but enough. Redundant log copies stacked one after another, most stamped outdated or corrupted. She searched rollback tags. Dozens appeared, each tied to resets across the past 6 months. One caught her eye. Payment gate. Remaps. 5 months old, buried under 6 redirects. She opened it. The rollback wasn't random. A working build had been flagged as broken, replaced with a faulty one, and the logs redirected into a side folder marked QA Review Pending. Internal alerts bypassed. Each reset logged hours before a major outage. Digging deeper, she stumbled on a raw chat log stored as test data from an abandoned messaging prototype. User 984. Don't let her near payment. Leave it. Let it break, then blame. MVX admin, I'll handle it. Her hand froze over the keyboard. A pipe hissed near the bay, releasing a plume of steam. She turned toward the sound, unsure whether it was mechanical or a warning. Back on screen, another query revealed Marla's access. Override commands. Not just Eden's workspace, but root privileges across the stack. All traced to a feature no one used anymore. Admin ghost ops disabled for everyone except her. Eden's throat tightened. This wasn't a grudge. It was structure. She was meant to be the exit plan, the scapegoat, a disposable face tied to tainted code. The floor groaned behind her. She spun. Empty. Only rack fans humming condensation, dripping steadily from the ceiling. She slid down against the wall, clutching the laptop to her chest. The cement chilled her through her shirt fingers, aching in the damp air. She had proof now, but proof wasn't enough. Who would believe her Corbin was gone some last-minute trip to Denver? Marla steered the narrative. Reese, the only one who had risked helping, had been reassigned out of reach. Her inbox showed no new messages. Calendar blank. She barely existed in the system present, but only tolerated. She copied the chat into a note, stared at the words until they blurred. Tried drafting a report detailing backups, overrides ghost ops, but her hands stalled. What if she sent it to the wrong person? What if it was intercepted? What if this was exactly what Marla wanted? She snapped the laptop shut, held it tight against her chest. The dark pressed close, damp as cloth. Mildew clung to the air. Her shirt stuck to her back. She could hear nothing but her own breath. Something scraped above metal shifting, or rats. She didn't flinch. The file was hers. But the next move wasn't. She needed more than evidence. She needed the right moment. Across the room, a motion light blinked off. She stayed seated, watching the blue glow of the battery icon pulse faintly. Waiting, measuring. Above, far up the elevator shaft, the building carried on as if nothing had ever broken. Wind tugged at the hem of her coat as Eden shoved open the rooftop access door. Hinges groaned, giving way to the hush of evening distance sirens, the scrape of wind along metal ducts. She stepped onto the gravel terrace, eyes narrowing against the golden haze of autumn. At the railing, a figure leaned into the skyline. Reese. You always pick high places, to think, she asked, voice half carried by the breeze. He let out a sound between a grunt and a laugh. Reminds me I'm not completely buried. Near his boot sat a paper cup of break room coffee, half full, bitter by smell alone. Eden joined him, hands in her pockets. I found your chat with Marla in the rollback logs. His nod was slow. Didn't think anyone would dig that deep. I assumed the logs were buried for good. They were marked outdated, she said. Outdated isn't the same as deleted. She waited. When he offered nothing more, she stepped closer. You knew she was setting me up. His jaw flexed. I suspected. Then I saw your commits overwritten without notice. That's her style. Sabotage that looks like error. No fingerprints. You let it happen. Her voice sharpened. I did, he admitted. It happened to me too. I questioned a review. Overnight, my access changed. A week later, I was reassigned. No memo. Just gone. And you didn't warn me. Reese met her eyes, shadowed under his cap. Because I thought maybe you'd survive it. That maybe Corbin would notice before it closed on you. She looked out across the city buildings, jagged against the sky windows, glowing unevenly like patched systems no one controlled. I don't want a shot, she said quietly. I want the truth to stay this time. He reached into his satchel and handed her a slim USB. System map. From before last year's rollout. Every approval chain rerouted through proxies. Marla never commits directly, but line up the timestamps, you'll see it. She took the drive, surprised by its warmth. Why now? Because I see how far you'll go, he said. And because if you walk away thinking this was on you, she wins. Above them, a gull wheeled in the peach-colored sky. Reese stepped back, lifting his coffee without looking at it. You won't get thanks, not even from Corbin. I'm not doing this for thanks. His glance was weary. Good, because when this lands, she'll come harder than she came for me. People like Marla don't fight fair. They fight unseen. Then I'll get louder. Eden's voice steadied. The rooftop door creaked. Reese didn't head toward it. You won't hear from me again, he said. But you've got more than enough now. Just be careful when you move. She nodded. His departure left no trace, no ceremony. Eden stayed, clouds stretching thin over the city. The wind shifted, carrying steel and smoke, maybe even the river. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. On the lock screen, you have been added to root access testing. Temp. No name. No subject. Only access. She stared at it, chest tight, not fear, but the sensation of ground tilting under her. As the door closed behind her, the sky darkened toward slate. Below, office windows lit floor by floor like a countdown no one had spoken aloud. The light snapped off mid-sentence. Breath caught somewhere in the room. A chair scraped back. From the ceiling corner, a weak orange glow sputtered, emergency power struggling to hold. Remain seated, Marla's voice cut through the dark, sharper now. We're on temporary backup. The meeting continues. Eden sat motionless, laptop warm against her knees, its glow sketching faint shadows across the wood-grain table. Around her, engineers and analysts blurred into silhouettes until the projector whined to life, blue flicker, then steady tech system incident review. Payment platform 6:42 a.m. outage. Marla stepped forward. This failure began in the sandbox environment recently modified by the experimental group. Rollback was issued at 7:10 a.m. Root cause remains under review. Heads bob, not in agreement, more out of reflex. Eden touched her trackpad. The anonymous message had arrived moments before root access granted. Present what matters. Mute what doesn't. Her tap switched the display. New slide rollback log. Payment system pathway. Archive layer. Lines scrolled upward, date stamps, rollback triggers, deletion events, each tied to an administrative signature. The logs weren't deleted, Eden said quietly. They were redirected into a deprecated storage path. She highlighted one entry in red. Rollback issued under admin override. No test protocol attached. Flagged as hidden. Marla's tone stayed smooth. Logs can be altered after the fact. Not this one. Eden's reply was even. The timestamp predates my access by 4 months. Another click split the screen. On the left, Marla's sandbox signature. On the right, the structures she'd denied ever touching. Static tension filled the room. Then a voice broke it. She's right. Dev Patel, quiet back-end engineer, leaning forward. I remember that chain. It broke tests for 3 days. We thought QA missed it. Marla folded her hands. That doesn't prove intent. It doesn't change that Eden pushed unverified code. We have logs, emails, and no credentials to justify her authority. Eden raised her eyes. I don't have credentials. I have working code. One last click. The payment simulation ran line by line through the patch system she had corrected 2 nights earlier. Every checkpoint returned green. Anyone can succeed once Marla countered. Consistency matters here. Eden said nothing. The room itself was shifting not with cheers, but with angled chairs and eyes holding on the screen instead of their manager. The projector blinked, then steadied. The debug console reported successful loop. A generator hummed below. Phones buzzed as internal channels restored. Someone read aloud root access testing. Eden Calloway added as technical reviewer. Marla turned briskly toward the door. This meeting is adjourned. For now. She left before anyone else moved. Eden stayed seated, laptop humming in her lap. Across the table, an engineer murmured, "That was a clean run." Another nodded. She caught something we didn't. Eden closed her laptop. Her reflection showed in the black screen, tired face, pale lips, shadows under her eyes. She rose. The projector shut down, leaving the room dim. On the wall, faint and flickering, her last frame lingered, status operational. Debug pass. She walked into the hallway steps muffled by carpet, the smell of warm plastic still seeping from the wiring closet. The door eased shut behind her with a muted click. The main floor buzzed with uneasy rhythm. Rows of chairs crowded the open atrium, floor-to-ceiling glass washing, company banners in late afternoon glare. End of quarter review, everyone was expected. Most came for the numbers. This time they came for the drama. Eden slipped into a seat near the back badge, clipped low eyes lowered to the tablet in her lap. Whispers skittered around her like static. She's the one from the kitchen, right? Heard she got a fast pass from upstairs. Check your inbox, someone leaked it. The email had hit channels minutes earlier, supposedly from Corbin Eden Calloway. Special consideration package. It praised her work, promised a private bonus for loyalty. Fake, but convincing. Marla stood at the front, sleeves, crisp voice polished. Before we begin review, I believe transparency is key. This company rewards initiative, but not favoritism. Everyone earns their way, equally. Heads turned toward Eden, some curious, some cutting. Her tablet buzzed a note from Reese. MD5 hash confirms it's a mock-up. Email never existed in production. She closed the screen. When her name was called, she rose slowly and walked the aisle. No Corbin on stage. No explanation of where he was. The lights dimmed. A motion-triggered spotlight caught her collar, half-shadowing her face. I don't have a statement, she said evenly. She tapped the remote. Logs filled the screen 96 hours of runtime clean performance across memory queries payment latency. This is the rebuild, she said. 4 modules. Restructured from base logic by 2 engineers with no titles. 4 days. No crashes. No rollbacks. Clean loop. Another slide test phase passed. Integration ready. I know what's being said. I also know what wasn't said when things broke before. When logs vanished. When blame was easier than repair. If the code runs clean, that's what matters. You don't have to believe me. Just run it. The pause that followed pressed heavy on the room. Even Marla stayed still, one hand on the podium, the other tight on her watch band. Murmurs stirred near the DevOps table. She's right. First stable cycle in months. Another voice, that handler module, whoever built it, it holds. Marla's jaw clenched, but she didn't argue. Eden powered down the clicker. She didn't need to press further. As she descended the steps, her hand brushed the railing, still damp from others. Each footfall clicked too loudly against tile. She didn't search faces, but near the exit she caught one. Corbin, one hand in his pocket, gazed steady on her. No nod, no smile, but unwavering. She kept walking. Badge pinged against the scanner. Soft chime unlocking the door. The weight in her chest hadn't lifted, but it had shifted, no longer silence. Something else. The garage lights flickered overhead, bare industrial strips buzzing above concrete pillars. Eden walked with her hands deep in her coat pockets, head down, air thick with exhaust and echo. She wasn't going to a car. She didn't own one. The loop was habit, now a walk to clear her head before the next fire. Footsteps followed, not rushed, measured. She turned near the service stairwell, expecting security or someone from IT. Instead, it was the quiet guy from the QA bench. Jalen, she thought, though few used his name. He always kept his eyes low and his code tidy. He stopped a few feet away, not quite meeting her gaze. "You got a minute?" She nodded, cautious. From his backpack, he pulled a flash drive. "I've been holding on to this. Didn't know what to do with it. But after that meeting, I figured you should." Eden hesitated, eyeing the small black rectangle like it might burn. "What is it?" "Backup logs. From the sandbox you tested in. The real ones. I cloned the environment before the purge. I shouldn't have, but I did. And why now?" He swallowed. "Marla promised me a sprint lead if I flagged your debug runs as unauthorized. Said it was temporary, just to build a case." Her arms folded, pulse tightening in her neck. "And you agreed I never filed it. But I didn't stop her either." His voice wavered. "Look, I'm not asking for trust. Only, if they come for you again, this might help." He held the USB out, hand trembling faintly. She didn't take it right away. "How do I know this isn't another setup?" "You don't." A weary smile touched his lips. "But last week when I spilled coffee, you still thanked me for catching a bug. That's more decency than I've seen here in months." She took the drive, cold plastic in her palm, heavier than it should have been. He turned, pausing at the stairwell door. "You're not the only one holding the line, Eden. Maybe just the only one still standing." By the time she looked up, he was gone. Back upstairs, the tension had shifted again. News spread fast. An internal audit launched against Corbin's office. An anonymous tip about undisclosed recruitment practices and non-standard promotions. Precise wording. Bureaucratic. Not scandal shouted, but rot whispered. She overheard it near the break area. Voices pitched too loud to be accidental. "Guess even the founder's not untouchable now. If this keeps going, legal will want heads. Can't believe he'd risk it for a waitress." Eden walked past without reacting, fingers tight around the flash drive in her coat. She skipped her desk. Instead, she slipped to the far end of the hall, down the back stairwell into the Innovation Annex, the forgotten room where she and one intern had stitched a system while the rest played politics. The room was dim, one overhead, light flickering. Her chair squeaked as she pulled it out. She placed the USB on the table. Rain tapped against the narrow window, steady and different. Beyond it, the city pulsed, commuters rushing to shelter streetlights, waking trains diving into tunnels. She didn't insert the drive. Her knuckles pressed the table edge as she stared at it. Proof or poison? Everything or nothing. For now, only wait. The annex wasn't soundproof, but its stillness felt untouched. Her old notebook lay beneath the monitor, open to a margin scribbled with a network flow and one scratched line. Do the next right thing. Her fingers brushed the cover. Breath slipped shallow from her chest. Thunder rolled above the concrete roof low and late. Then stillness again. She pulled her laptop closer, powered it up, not ready to open the drive but unwilling to leave it behind. The fryer hissed like always grease snapping as battered potatoes hit the oil. Steam curled from the grill where ham sizzled beside over-easy eggs. Eden stood at the kitchen's swinging door, the smell of burnt toast and dish soap striking harder than she expected. The same faded sign still hung above the counter. No substitutions after 10 a.m. Nothing had changed. Not the cracked vinyl booths, not the jukebox that hadn't worked since she was 21. Not even Ramon the cook who glanced over his shoulder and blinked like she was a ghost. "Look what the dishwasher dragged in," he said, lips tugging between suspicion and affection. Eden stepped past the line of pickup orders, leaning lightly on the service counter. "Didn't think you'd still be here." He tossed a spatula into the sink. "Didn't think you would be." They didn't talk about Dresden, or code, or systems. Ramon flipped hash browns with the same rhythm he'd used when she was scraping plates 3 years earlier. As he plated a breakfast special, he muttered, "I used to think you were a dreamer with a busted laptop and no clue." She laughed, the sound breaking weeks of tension like sunlight through warped wood. "I was." Ramon slid the plate forward, wiped his hands, and finally met her eyes. "Yeah, but turns out you had more grit than the rest of us combined." She didn't answer. The pause didn't ask her to. Out front, the booths hummed with low talk and coffee refills. A toddler clattered a spoon against the table. The floor still creaked near the register. Eden lingered by the window watching rain blur the street. Her reflection hovered in the glass. Hair tucked back, coat collar, damp face calm but not hardened. She pulled out her phone. No more waiting, no more second guessing. The files were zipped in a secure folder backed up twice. Logs, time-stamped copies, MD5 hashes, even the chat snippets where Marla had staged the rollbacks. Her thumb hovered over the draft. Address already filled, internal review, dresstontech.net. At the top, she typed one line, "I'm not sending this to win. I'm sending it so the next one doesn't have to go through what I did." She didn't sign. Metadata would carry her name. One tap. The banner flashed. "Your report has been filed. You may not receive a direct reply." She stared at the screen. No relief. No praise. Just stillness, like breath returning after being held too long. Wind stirred leaves across the sidewalk. A van idled at the curb. Two high schoolers ducked into the bakery next door, hoods tight against drizzle. Eden stepped into the weather. No headlines waited. No applause. No instant fallout. But somewhere in the codebase, rollback privileges had been flagged. Somewhere on a secure server, her timestamp submission was preserved. She walked past the bus stop she used to haunt after shifts, past the corner store where she borrowed Wi-Fi when the cafe cut the signal, past the bench where she cried over her mother's hospital bill. Each step layered over that history, not erasing, but rewriting. At the intersection, the crosswalk turned green. She kept walking, shoulders squared, rain stitching soft patterns on her sleeves. The announcement arrived just after sunrise, folded into the Daily Digest sent to every Dresden inbox. Most skimmed it. A few opened it. Only some grasped its weight. Internal audit findings. Q3 review, Marla Vexler. Suspended pending further investigation. Violation unauthorized administrative access and manipulation of rollback logs. No dramatic language. No adjectives. Just facts stripped bare. Corporate, surgical. Eden reread the email not because she needed to confirm what she saw, but because it felt too quiet. No direct mention of her, no recognition, not even a footnote. But in the team assignment sheet sent exactly 42 minutes later, there it was. Near the bottom, bold but understated, sitting between two promotions and a reassignment project lead. Eden Calloway acting. No comments attached. No context. The name sat there like it had always belonged. Across the office, whispers spread. Slack channels lit with emojis. Vague gifs inside jokes passed between those who had been watching and those only now catching up. Eden ignored them. In the main hall, chairs scraped as the all-hands began. Corbin stepped forward without preamble. No jacket, no slides. A folded printout in one hand, a mug in the other. I won't take much of your time, he said no. Mike needed. He unfolded the page, smoothed it flat, and read, effective immediately, all future test cases are open to any verified engineer, regardless of tenure, department, or certification. Debug rights are universal. If you locate the issue, you own it. If you fix it, it ships with your name. He looked up, waited. No applause, no murmur. Only the HVAC hum overhead. A voice broke the pause, uncertain. What if someone doesn't have a degree? Ripples moved through the room. A few eyes slid toward Eden. Corbin smiled, not laughing. If their code runs clean, it speaks for itself. One senior engineer tilted their head, reassessing. Another pulled out a phone, pretending not to glance her way. At the far end, she stayed still. No fidget, no smile. Back at her desk, she clicked into the live environment. The latest patch from systems had a memory leak, small but enough to trigger silent retries under load. Most would flag it. She didn't. The keyboard felt as it had her first week stiff spacebar uneven tab. Her monitor still glitched in the top right corner. The desk still leaned slightly. But no one asked her to move. No one asked her to leave. Someone walked by, dropped a sticky note. 96-hour uptime confirmed. Nice catch. She didn't lift her head, only nodded once and kept typing. Further down, interns whispered, "That's her, right? The Waitress kitchen?" Another corrected. She wasn't even on GitHub 6 months ago. Corbin headed for the side exit phone, buzzing with stacked meetings. Near the back wall, he paused long enough to glance at her screen. No words, no linger. She kept her eyes on the code. Through the tall windows, cranes moved across the skyline, lifting steel and glass into place. She couldn't say yet what she was building, only that for the first time she didn't need permission. A shadow passed behind her. Another keyboard joined. Then another. No grand gesture. No declaration. A room full of engineers working. She leaned closer to the screen. The leak traced back to a copied line from an old module code no one touched. She rewrote it, ran the test, and watched runtime settle without spikes. Her fingers hovered, then pressed enter. Terminal green. The light in Eden's room barely reached past her knees. That old yellow lampshade, cracked at the corner, cast just enough glow to hold the dark at bay. She sat on the floor, surrounded by worn notebooks, scratched flash drives, printouts bent at the edges. It had been months since she touched any of it. Her laptop whirred as she opened a buried folder beneath newer, cleaner projects. The name hadn't changed, Mom notes. The screen hesitated before loading, like even the machine had to catch its breath. There it was, her first app. The interface looked like something pulled from a high school science fair. Fonts, too big, colors clashing in all the wrong ways. But the note still blinked at the top, pinned like it always had been. Don't forget Mom's pills. 8 a.m. Her throat tightened. She had written that reminder at a kitchen table, barely big enough to eat on, with her mother sleeping in the next room, and a second-hand instruction manual spread open across the linoleum. No design, no finesse, just a desperate need for something that would help. She scrolled through the old comments, in the code half of them, more like diary entries than technical notes. There were lines where she'd reminded herself not to cry when the app failed again. Others were just guesses at how to keep the alert working if the internet cut out. It had been messy, but it had worked. A buzz from her phone pulled her out of the moment. For a second, she just stared at the screen. Then she dialed. Davenport Care Center, good evening. Hi, she said, voice lower than usual. Room 209, Agnes Calloway. Connecting you now. The hold music crackled for a beat. Then came the voice, soft, hoarse, but unmistakable. Hello, it's me, Mom. You always call around this time. A pause. Or did I dream that no dream, Eden said. I'm here. She leaned back against the wall, knees pulled in, phone pressed to her ear like it was keeping her upright. Still working, her mother asked. Still playing with those codes of yours? Yeah, still playing. I never really understood what you were building, her mother admitted. But I remember thinking you always looked like you believed in it, even when it didn't work. I did, Eden whispered. Most of the time. Another pause. I don't remember everything now, her mother said, but I remember that little voice of yours when you used to say, I'll fix it, just give me time. And somehow, you always did. Eden didn't answer. She only smiled, eyes stinging. They talked a little longer, nothing urgent, nothing big. When the nurse gently reminded her it was time for lights out, Eden promised she'd call again tomorrow. After the call, she let her hands rest in her lap. The apartment held stillness broken only by the fridge's low hum and the occasional car sliding over wet pavement. Her laptop screen had dimmed, but not shut down. The app still glowed faintly, a blinking reminder at the top. She clicked through folders, test logs, audit trails, deployment backups, months of work she had built, debugged, fought through. One by one, she dragged them into the trash. Files she no longer needed to prove, except one. She kept it open untouched, letting the timestamp tick forward. It was always a little broken, but it had helped someone she loved, and that was enough. Leaning forward, she saved it to a clean folder, backed it up twice, once to the cloud, once to a drive taped beneath her desk, then closed the lid. The room for once carried a stillness she didn't feel compelled to break. She reached up, turned off the lamp. The yellow bulb flickered once, then vanished, leaving only its afterimage hanging in the dark. The company's main hall carried a hush that didn't fit the occasion. Folding chairs creaked. Jackets rustled. Near the back, someone coughed and caught themselves. No music, no banners, only the scent of polished wood and the soft clatter of laptops being set down. Eden stood at the center beside a small screen listing new project assignments. Under Development Unit Delta were names without a clear pattern, some older, some fresh from internships, at least one who had never worked in tech. It didn't matter. Not this time. Corbin stood behind the divider curtain, arms crossed. He wasn't on the stage. He hadn't asked to be. Eden glanced toward him just once, then stepped up to the mic. "We're not promising results in 30 days, she began, voice steady. "But for 45, we'll run a full build cycle. No filters, no back-channel vetting. Anyone in this group codes clean, they stay." No applause followed, but no interruptions came either. She scanned the room quickly. No sign of Marla. Rumors had circulated: internal audit, HR meetings, restricted access. But nothing formal had ever been posted. The company had a way of letting people disappear without the weight of a headline. Reese sat 3 rows and head down, tapping something into his phone. 2 engineers Eden recognized from Marla's old team had submitted transfer requests just that morning. Neither gave explanations. They hadn't needed to. She'd approved them with a single-line, clean commit history. "Welcome aboard." The new team sat close together, some talking quietly, some looking like they were still wondering if this was real. Eden adjusted the mic slightly, then nodded once and stepped away. No more speech. No ceremony. She found a seat near the aisle, her laptop balanced on one knee. The system dashboard was already open. Time ticked toward the hour mark. 2:00 p.m. sharp. The payment module went live again. No red lines. No drop packets. No logs flagged. The queue held steady, smooth as glass. She didn't smile, didn't move, just watched as the heartbeat of the system settled into rhythm. No cheers broke out. No Slack notifications exploded in celebration. The room stayed mostly quiet, with the occasional chair legs scraping as people slowly began to drift out. One of the newer devs leaned over from the row ahead and whispered, "It's working." Eden just nodded. A few more trickled past her. Some offered small waves or half smiles. She answered with a nod or a quiet, "Thanks." Reese gave a thumbs up without turning. By the time the last group filed out, the room had settled back into emptiness. Eden remained, laptop open, its screen glowing faintly. Autumn light pooled across the floor, filtered through narrow windows near the ceiling. Wind stirred unseen leaves beyond the glass. She leaned back, watching the system run. The code ignored the drama. It executed, steady, predictable, as if it had always known what it was meant to do, waiting only for someone to let it. Pulling her sweater closer, she watched transaction data stream across the dashboard like sheet music, smooth and aligned. She thought of that first app she had written, the reminder for her mother. This wasn't so different. More users, more pressure, but the same impulse: keep something alive, keep it from slipping through the cracks. Clicking open the commit log, she saw today's entry stamped 1347. A clean build, no warnings. Under submitted by it still bore her ID. No override. No ghost account. She let her eyes fall shut for a moment. The soft hum of systems syncing filled the space. No spotlight. No plaques. But no one doubted her anymore either. Leaving the dashboard open, she folded her hands behind her head, listening to the quiet rhythm of the things she had helped steady, not because someone told her to, but because someone had to. And for the first time in a long while, that someone could be her. The library's multi-purpose room smelled faintly of dry paper and hand sanitizer. Folding chairs creaked under denim and polyester. Four kids hunched over mismatched laptops. Eyes narrowed too, whispering, one chewing a pencil, another jabbing the space bar like it owed him answers. On the whiteboard behind Eden, someone had scrawled in thick blue marker, "Bugs are temporary." Losing trust crashes the system. She hadn't written it, but left it there. None of the students asked what it meant. Maybe they already knew. The girl with the short braid finally raised her hand. "Miss Eden, what if the bug only shows up sometimes?" "Then it's lying," Eden said without turning. "And we don't let bugs lie to us." The girl grinned and went back to debugging. From the far corner, a woman with a small voice recorder lingered near the bookshelves. She'd introduced herself earlier, local paper weekend profile series. Eden had already said no. "I'm not doing interviews," she'd repeated politely. "Not even the inspiring kind. But people want to know how you made it." Eden had only shrugged. "I didn't make it up. I just walked sideways past a lot of locked doors." The reporter eventually settled in near the back, taking notes anyway. 3 more lines of code went wrong before someone laughed, this time the boy with the serious eyebrows. He'd managed to crash the emulator but looked proud about it. "Congratulations," Eden said, walking over. "You broke it so well it told you exactly where it hurt. That's progress." She circled the tables quietly, checking screens, offering short suggestions, redirecting fingers, hovering over the wrong keys. At the far end, a new girl sat apart, no laptop, just a spiral notebook and a pen. Her apron still had grease smudges near the waist. She hadn't said much, only nodded when Eden welcomed everyone at the start. Now she was scribbling furiously in her notebook, copying code examples from the handout and underlining variable names. Her handwriting tilted left like it was trying to hide from being seen. Eden crouched beside her. "Where's your laptop?" The girl paused, eyes flicking up. "Don't have one. I'm just writing it down." Eden tapped the table gently. "Bring one next time. We've got a Wi-Fi login and an outlet with your name on it." The girl nodded but didn't smile. As the hour closed, the room settled into a kind of shared focus. Keystrokes grew softer. Pencils slowed. Even the whisperers had gone quiet, both trying to find a missing semicolon. Golden autumn light slid across the window panes and pooled on the floor. Shadows from the library shelves stretched in long diagonals across the linoleum. Eden looked up just as one of them reached her old laptop, now in front of the girl from the restaurant who had moved it from the lending cart when no one was looking. It was still scuffed on the edges. The R key stuck slightly, but it booted. It ran. And in this room, it wasn't a relic, it was a beginning. Someone raised their hand again. Another question. Eden walked back to the whiteboard, erased a line, rewrote another. She didn't need to say much anymore. The silence in the room wasn't awkward, it was focused. It was the sound of something rebuilding itself, line by line. When the library volunteer knocked gently to signal time's up, the kids didn't rush to leave. They packed slowly, folding notes, unplugging cables, tucking chargers into secondhand bags. Eden stayed behind to wipe the board. She erased the quote last. The reporter from the back approached once more, recorder off this time. "I think people will want to know about this place," she said, gesturing around. "They'll find out," Eden replied, slinging her bag over one shoulder. "But not because I told them." The woman opened her mouth to ask something else, but thought better of it. By the time the room was empty, Eden was still there, straightening chairs, tucking in cords, smoothing out a torn corner of the poster about free weekend classes. The wind outside picked up, fluttering the blinds, sending stripes of warm light across the floor. She paused by the table where the old laptop rested, now closed and ready for its next session. No badge, no spotlight, just keys worn smooth from use. She turned off the lights, let the door close behind her with a soft click, and walked down the hallway toward the exit where no one was waiting and no one needed to be. Not every story ends with a spotlight. Eden didn't get a press release. She didn't want one. But what she rewrote wasn't just code. It was the rules of who gets a seat at the table. She didn't fight to be the exception. She fought so no one else had to be. If this story moved you even a little, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. We've got more stories like this coming your way.